Hello, welcome, namaste to Little Loony. And today we'll be talking about how to deal with breakups, how to handle heartbreaks. We are here with Dr. Shishir. So, welcome, Dr. Shishir.
Thank you very much.
Please tell us a little about how to handle heartbreaks. When you say that, ab to khatam ho gaya, this is a failed relationship.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned two words, heartbreak and a failed relationship. I would rather call it as an ended relationship, a relationship that has been formally ended and there is a closure to the relationship. However, not all relationships end in a good note or a clarity that this is ended, right? So there could be many aspects. First of all, any heartbreak, which is end of a romantic relationship, can be very painful. So it's important for us to acknowledge that it is painful and it doesn't have to be other way, right? It is painful. However, there can be certain ways to deal with the relationship that will ease the pain and help you lead a happier and healthier life, emotionally healthier life. Do not call it as a failed relationship. It's not a race or an exam where you have failed and you do not have to prove anyone. It's a relationship that has ended. Similarly, do not call yourself as a failure because the relationship didn't last, right? Many people who go through a heartbreak get very depressed when it comes to the end of the relationship, and there could be many reasons why they get very depressed. First is they calling themselves as unlovable. It is common to think that if the other person does not love me, the significant person doesn't love me, that means I am unlovable. Quite a few other things. One of the things is many people make relationship as the center stage of their life, and they think if the relationship is over, then my entire life is meaningless. So imagine there is a glass of water, and this glass of water represents your life, and if you were to add some pebbles to it which represent some problems, I could say that the clear glass of water is my life, and I added a few pebbles into it, which mean I have financial issues, I have health issues, I have other problems that I treat as pebbles. If I put them into the glass, I'll still be able to drink water from this glass, right?
Right.
And sometimes these pebbles can be removed and sometimes they won't be. But I can still drink water from this glass, which means I will be able to enjoy my life despite the problems. But what if I were to put a drop of ink into this glass of water?
Then the water is not drinkable.
Right. And I'll say that my entire life is meaningless or worthless because of this small drop of ink. So it's up to you how you treat the relationship end, as pebble or a drop of ink. So do not call my relationship has ended, so my entire life is meaningless. No, relationship is just one part of it. And there's one funny thing about people who believe in the soulmate theory, that there is only one soulmate made for me, and I met this soulmate, and because it didn't work out with them, I will never get any other person. I do acknowledge that nobody is replaceable, nobody can take their place. However, it is wrong to assume, it is inaccurate to assume that there is only one soulmate and you will never get any other soulmate. Strictly speaking, if this was true, the chance of you meeting your soulmate was 1 in 8 billion. That's the entire population of the world, right? And that is literally impossible to meet such a person. You are compatible with millions of people. Explore, go out, and you will find someone, another soulmate who was made for you.
It's all in the mind, maybe.
Absolutely. There are reasons for that. However, we'll not get there. But how to deal with a breakup is, these are a few things. And sometimes there is no proper closure to a relationship. So the other person ghosts you. You do not know what has happened. The other person simply stops talking to you, responds to you very intermittently, and there's no proper closure to the relationship. So you need to have a clear decision from your side that this is the relationship I do not want to continue, right? And many times you are married to the person and the relationship is not working out well, and you cannot technically end the relationship. In such situations, always tell yourself that my self-care is important. Self-care is not selfish.
Okay, I do get what you're saying. I was trying to find happiness in and around that one particular person or relationship. My happiness graph was completely dependent on the person was in my life or out of my life. But as I started concentrating on the things I love to do, or the things that liberates me, like maybe dancing or doing something creative. It added a meaning to my life. At a retrospect, I can talk about all these things, but I did not have the strength at that time. That time I was completely struggling, and it was again all in my mind, where I had believed that everything in and around me is meaningless. So when somebody goes through that state of mind, so what would you want to, like, tell somebody to come out of that state?
When someone thinks that everything around them is meaningless because the relationship has ended, it is not something that has happened overnight. They have categorically excluded activities that can make them happy. So they have started deriving happiness, they had probably started deriving happiness only from the relationship. So imagine that you had only one grocery store that you are dependent on completely, and this grocery store shuts down. You will feel very helpless because you think that there is no other grocery store you can get happiness from. I'm not saying that have a partner on the bench. What I'm saying is that if you have multiple sources of happiness that do not involve people, say for instance, I love gardening, I love painting, I love photography, I love counseling, I love so many things, I love traveling, I love cooking, I love eating. So, if I were to constantly engage in these activities despite being in a stable relationship, I would not get shattered if one source of happiness disappears. And let's say, worst case scenario, you are in such a situation. Tell yourself one thing, that there is nothing like love. I mean, absolutely, there's nothing like love. The kind of pleasure, happiness it can give you, I don't think it can be matched with anything else, right? So, I'm totally on this with everyone who thinks that love is everything. But the next best thing to love is balance. Do not lose the balance between your mental health, physical health, interpersonal health, which involves love, your professional health, and your financial health. Do not ignore other relationships, say for instance, non-romantic relationships like your friends, your pets, your parents, your children, or probably anyone else, right? And a relationship with yourself. Do not lose those relationships for the sake of one relationship. I remember a song which is pretty rational. Maybe you have heard it too. छोड़ दे सारी दुनिया किसी के लिए, ये मुनासिब नहीं आदमी के लिए. It's such a rational song. It tells us it just doesn't make sense to call the entire life meaningless because a relationship has ended. So love can enhance happiness, but it's neither necessary nor sufficient for it.
How do you actually welcome the good hormones in your body while you're struggling out of a relationship? Usually, of course, you will feel stressed, you will feel anxious.
Now, there are two types of chemicals in the body that regulate mood. One is something called as a neurotransmitter. For instance, dopamine and serotonin are neurotransmitters. These are the feel-good neurotransmitters. And there are hormones such as oxytocin that are released in the body. They give you a sense of euphoria and attachment to another person. Now, talking about these chemicals, the good thing about these chemicals is that they can be triggered by multiple sources, not just the relationship. So when you are in a very happy relationship, the dopamine is high, the serotonin is high, the oxytocin is high. However, we can still derive happiness, pleasure, satisfaction, contentment, and a sense of attachment from different sources. Even petting a pet or hugging a pet can give you oxytocin, which is very similar to hugging your partner. I'm not comparing that it will match it. However, I'm saying that you can still get the same similar feeling. When people have a breakup, their dopamine and serotonin levels drop drastically, right? And if they have had a history of clinical depression, it is likely that they will also get into clinical depression. So if someone has a low mood, persistent low mood for a long time, specifically more than 15 days in a row, I think they might want to get evaluated for depression. Plus, what happens is many times we have seen people with low mood or mood disturbances to have simple biological deficits, like as we are talking about biology. We also see drastic drops in, I would say massively, a lot of people or majority of people with mood disturbances also have vitamin D deficiency, vitamin B12 deficiency. Their thyroid hormones could be off the mark. So if everyone does these tests, I'm sure that they will find something wrong in these tests, and if that is fixed, you can regulate your mood better. So to get the happy hormones and chemicals back, fix these levels, increase your total activity, improve your exposure to the sun, Do activities that you used to enjoy earlier that you may not be enjoying right now. They may not be as enjoyable, but still force yourself to do them. And derive happiness or develop new sources of happiness. And do not compare it with the amount of happiness love gave you. That cannot be matched, but it will make you less dependent on it.
Do you think mindfulness helps, and if it does, how it does?
I'm not an expert on mindfulness. However, I'm an expert on cognitive behavior therapy, and we know that it works. There is sufficient evidence for CBT and REBT, which are evidence-based therapies. You don't have to have a disorder to approach a CBT therapist, but I'm sure that CBT definitely helps.
Many low points when people actually feel like giving up. How will you want to tell them that fight with those moments and just stay put?
When you say giving up, you mean to say kill yourself or
Yeah, suicidal thoughts, harming yourself, yes.
Yeah, it's natural to have suicidal thoughts. However, if we look at suicidal thoughts, we may have ideas of death. For instance, some thoughts about death. I am dying. This is a thought about death, right? So I have an image of me dying. I may also have an intent to die, which means that I want to die. There may be an intent to kill yourself, which is a suicidal intent, right? There may be a passive wish to die. I don't want to kill myself, but I would be better off dead, right? And with the intent, now it could become intense, which is I have a specific plan of dying. And then I have attempted to harm myself suicidally or non-suicidally. And then the more number of attempts I have done, the higher the risk. So if we see from thoughts of dying to active attempts to die, there is a grade of severity and frequency that people may have. Just because someone has a thought of dying does not necessarily mean that they will die by suicide, right? So whenever you have a thought of dying or killing yourself, the only answer is seek professional help. If you had a heart attack or a fracture, you would not deal with at home.
Okay, great. There were a lot of things that you mentioned. So if I can recapitulate all the things that you said, maybe in 5 pointers, just to have a very short summary of the entire thing. So what would that be?
Number 1, do not call it a failed relationship. It's an ended relationship, and you are not a failure. You are just a human being who ended a relationship. Number 2, do not take it personally. Just because a relationship has ended does not necessarily mean that it was all your fault, or it definitely does not mean that you're unlovable. It simply means that you were not compatible with each other, or something happened that led to the end of the relationship. Do not call end of the relationship as end of life. Do not think that your entire life is meaningless just because the relationship has ended. So compartmentalize life, relationship, the other aspects of life, such as I said, professional, academic, and so on. Do not think that the entire life is meaningless. Number 4 would be, there's no point in finding whose fault it was. Many times, it just doesn't make sense. It's historical, so do not keep revisiting it. However, you may want to write down few things that you would like to do differently in the next relationship, if at all. And moving on does not necessarily mean you get into another relationship. Moving on may involve self-care, which is not selfish.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shishir, for your time. And it was a lovely, lovely session talking to you, chatting with you.
Thank you so much, and wonderful talking to you guys. I hope that you improve your relationships from today onwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned, and hopefully we get you more and more such videos.